The Winter Palace. Act 2. Rehearsal. After the glorious welcome to the Winter Palace, and after unpacking her tutus, it was time for Katrina to begin practicing her ballet with Great Aunt Maldiva. This kind of rehearsal could be quite rigorous and puzzling even as Katrina revisited the fundamental techniques of ballet. First position, second position, first position, second position, etc., etc. Aunt Maldiva would instruct, leap, leap, and point the tippy toes. She cried out in a vague Eastern European accent, banging her cane on the floor in time with the music, banging and banging that cane. Sometimes Katrina felt as though she was rehearsing ballet for about 25 hours a day, which seems to me like a tremendous amount of ballet. Now, as you can see, Katrina worked hard and was very dedicated and disciplined. It was no accident that back in Moscow, at the Imperial Ballet, Katrina had risen through the corps de ballet to be considered one of the greatest ballerinas of all time. But even an overachiever like Katrina can sometimes get cabin fever. So Katrina thought it would be marvelous when her great uncles, the Grand Dukes Alexei and Sasha, suggested they go ice skating, which can be a questionable activity for a ballerina because it can make your ankles pretty sore, or you might slip and hurt yourself. Aunt Maldiva certainly, might not approve. So they didn't mention anything to Aunt Maldiva and slipped out to a nearby frozen pond, followed by the Dalmatians and the little wiener dog Dalmatians. And there at the frozen pond, Katrina and her great uncles put on ice skates and then warmed up with some pliés and tendus, and then they did the mazurka on ice. And that was a whole lot of fun. Now in the evenings, Katrina spent time alone in her room, listening to Russian balalaika music by candlelight, and reading books by Russian authors like Alexander Pushkin and Peter Kropotkin, who wrote a lot of fun books for young people. She also watched the movie Dr. Zhivago over and over and over again because it was the only movie they had. Now when Katrina looked out her window at night, it might still be snowing a little, but sometimes the light from the moon and stars broke through and would illuminate the branches of a persimmon tree outside the palace. You know what a persimmon is. It's a sweet winter fruit. It looks like this. One day, Katrina heard the jingle jingle of Jingle Bell. She looked out the window of the Winter Palace to see a gentleman with a bushy beard and a large furry hat arriving in a sleigh. The sleigh was full of holiday gifts and packages and was pulled by 2 golden reindeer. Aunt Maldiva and the Grand Dukes introduced the gentleman to Katrina, and they invited him inside the Winter Palace for tea, into the drawing room for tea. Now, tea is very popular in Russia. It's served out of something called a samovar, which looks like this. The gentleman's name was Nicholas von Strudeldorfer. He was an old friend of Great Aunt Maldiva and the Grand Dukes since back before the time of Rasputin and the Revolution, and when the Moldavian Democratic Republic declared independence, and before that thing happened in Latvia. Well, Mr. von Strudeldorfer was a magician, and he entertained Katrina with some magical disappearing coins. Then he showed her a small album of photographs. They were photographs of her beautiful Great Aunt Maldiva from many years ago, when Maldiva had been the star of the Russian Imperial Ballet. And Katrina now understood that she herself was part of a long family tradition in the world of ballet. Mr. von Strudeldorfer also showed Katrina photographs of the Grand Dukes Alexei and Sasha, back when they had been just regular dukes, before the fanciful hats and uniforms, back when they had just been little boys running around in their underpants. But of course, in their case, royal Russian underpants. Now after tea, they all went out for a walk in the snowy forest, and because this story was originally translated from the Russian, it's a little complicated in this part. I had some trouble with the translation of this part, but it goes something like, after tea, they all went out for a walk in the snowy forest, picked lots of persimmons. Soon it was time for Mr. von Strudeldorfer to go. He and the reindeer flew off into the sky. Anyway, something like that. Anyway, on to Act 3, the finale.
Please continue to Act 3 of the Winter Palace. Simply click on the link below to the Winter Palace Act 3.